Whistler, Andrea Stella and James Vowles. We're at a very iconic racetrack. Question to all of you, first of all. Let's get a bit of colour about being here in Brazil. James, if we could start with you. Best memory of Interlagos, first of all, please.
Mine's probably a long time ago. It's not Williams, I'm afraid, but it was 2009, because this is where I won the championship for the first time with Jensen and as constructors as well. And it was... there's a number of championships won here, and you can see why. And it's just always accumulates in this fantastic race. And it's exactly the same thing on that particular weekend as well. I'll remember it for the rest of my life. But it's one of those tracks that's iconic.
Thank you. Andrea?
Actually, my memories go even farther away, because my best memory is 2007, when we won the championship with Kimi. It was quite a dramatic event, because actually the result was only confirmed around midnight, because there were some investigations after the race. That was the positive side of the outcome. The year after, we were champions just for 38 seconds. And then Hamilton took the title. Year 2006, it was the last race of Michael at Ferrari. I think personally that's the strongest race pace I've ever seen, because he was one lap down following an incident, and then he finished fourth. So there's quite a lot going on here. I think if there's not a documentary about Interlagos, we should definitely do it.
Thanks, Andrea. Mario?
I think it's a bit more recent. 2016 was a very exciting race. It was wet with Max recovering a lot of positions and a lot of action on track, with Massa that crashed, and then it was supposed to be his last race, so a mix of emotions, and it was, as a spectator, obviously we win all the championships, so it was a nice race.
All right, Mario, thank you for that. James, let's come back to you now. It's been a frustrating month for Williams, just 1 point from 3 races. Where's the potential of the car at the moment?
We have the ability to score points every weekend. We have to reflect on the fact that midfield battle is incredibly tight. In the case of Mexico, there were sort of 4 or 5 teams, all of us within, I think it was about 30, 40 milliseconds of each other. You have to get everything right. The frustration is we have the car pace, but we haven't always delivered for various mechanisms. So in the case of Mexico, that really was a race incident. There's nothing you can do about it. At the start of the race, 3 doesn't fit into 2. We had a second incident in FP1, and all of those just set you back during the course of the weekend. But even with that together, Alex was still able to put that car right up there into that 9th place. And based on Franco's race pace, we had the potential to score good points. And it's the same back in Austin. It's a tale of brilliant drive from Franco, brilliant overtake from Franco on Fernando, and good recovery. But again, accident at the beginning of the race, because we are just bunched together and all of us are fighting for the same meter, just put Alex out of the race. So we haven't maximised anything over the last 2 weekends, and it's frustrating. But getting a fast car is more difficult, and we have a good foundation to work from. And then again, it looks good this morning.
So a change of luck is what Williams needs as much as anything.
This is where I'm going to have a bit of turmoil myself, because I don't believe in good or bad luck. I really don't. I think you create it through structure, through process, through just delivering the car to be in the right place on the right track at a certain point. But I'm struggling to come to terms with what happened in Mexico as a result of that. But I think it's really our job is head down. We've got a quick enough car, just make sure we execute as well as we can and let points come our way.
So if we look at your closest battle in the World Championship, Teams Championship, 3 points between you and Alpine, who do you think has the faster car at the moment?
They've done some impressive... Pierre's been really good in qualifying the last few events, but in the race we've generally been able to basically get ahead of them every time. So I think still on what I consider the important metric, race pace, we're fine, we're ahead of them, but it's not far away.
Can we talk drivers, and specifically Franco Colapinto now? Is he still making great improvements from race to race? What are you seeing?
Without doubt, and there's more to come from him as well, and that's to be expected. It'd be easy to forget when you look at the performances in Mexico, in Austin, that he's only been with us for a handful of races in Formula One, but he has. And as you'll know with all of the greats, that there's one Piastri next door. You keep building across time. You don't finish your learning in 4 or 5 races, and there's a tremendous more to come from him.
What does the future, team-wise, hold for him? I mean, should an opportunity arise elsewhere? He said yesterday in the press conference, the normal thing, and I'm quoting him there, would be for you to let him go? Is that the reality? Will you let him go if there's another opportunity?
The best I can say is this. We're exploring possibilities with a number of teams that are interested at the moment. And beyond there, it would be wrong to do anything more than speculate here. There's nothing to really communicate beyond that point. When there is, I'll happily talk about it because he's an exceptional driver. And I really mean that. Go look outside, and there was tens of thousands of individuals here to support a driver that's been in our championship for 5 races. He's doing an outstanding job on track. And as I've said from the very beginning, earn your position and elements will come your way. But beyond there, I think especially when we look at the fact he's a 21-year-old and my responsibility is also towards him and making sure we do the right thing, I want to make sure that when we have news, come to the world, but there really isn't much to talk about right now.
Would you want him on a bungee back to William?
It's the same conversation I just had. In any circumstance, I want to make sure we understand what others are interested in, and then we'll form our basis as to what's the best solution for everyone.
All right, James, thank you for that. I'm sure there'll be more questions in a minute. Andrea, can we come to you? Let's talk about the world title fights. First of all, the Drivers' Championship. How's Lando dealing with the added pressure of battling Max Verstappen? Have you seen him grow as a driver in the last few races?
Definitely. I think Lando is coping with this situation of being in the fight for the championship in a way that we are enjoying. First of all, I would say, he's now a very mature driver, fast. The racecraft keeps improving all the time. The attitude, the learning from every situation, which we can appreciate almost on a race-by-race time scale. I think Lando is definitely now a mature driver to succeed in this kind of fight, which is a fight against one of the best drivers, I think, in history of Formula One. Titles, looking at the titles that Max has achieved, and I think this is universally recognized. So we just keep telling Lando all the time, like, keep doing what we are doing. Let's keep improving all the time. Let's become the best version of ourselves race after race.
You mentioned racecraft. You say keep doing what you're doing. But would you like him to do anything different in his wheel-to-wheel racing with Max Verstappen?
Not at all. You know, when I say keep doing what we are doing, I obviously mean this in a broad sense, but definitely I also mean this in a very specific sense. I think we got some learning, for instance, from Austria. We got a little too close. And the points we miss from Austria, because of having had a proper collision and then being knocked out of the race, are points that we regret. We don't really regret many other points in this season, potentially the one in Austin, where we still believe that the final classification isn't correct, but we respect the work of the stewards. We have tried with a right of review to find some correction of that situation that happened in Austin. This didn't happen. We move on. So I think from Lando's point of view, that's the way it should be going racing. Lando reflects also in the way he goes racing our own values. We race fair, we race in a correct way, we race in a sportsman-like way. And then ultimately in this kind of close fights, there's a third party that is the stewarding. We trust the stewarding. I think in Mexico this worked very well and we had good racing.
And in the Constructors' Championship, how do you see the threat from Ferrari? Does your 29-point advantage give you a margin for error?
No margin at all. No margin at all. 29 points with 4 races to go against Ferrari and Red Bull. First of all, we talk about Ferrari and Red Bull, like the world champion team, Red Bull, Ferrari, a team that have been in contention for the world championship for many years, with Ferrari in particular recently, with a very fast car, 2 solid drivers. In Formula One, you don't really lean on these kind of margins. The only thing you can do is just stay focused on yourself, execute at the best of your potential, race weekends, and then really look at the classification after the race in Abu Dhabi.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. I'm sure there'll be more questions for you in a minute. Mario, coming to you now. First of all, what are the teams and drivers saying about the new track surface here at Interlagos? Lando's fastest lap in FP1, already faster than pole position last year.
Yeah, we were expecting these lap times because we, as usual, we measure the roughness of the circuit. It's much smoother compared to last year, but the level of grip is still in line with last year. Not very high, but more or less the same. So we were expecting similar lap times. Also a lot of track evolution. I heard some comments about the bumps, but honestly, it's not a detail that we consider in our measurement. I'm expecting, as I said, a lot of track evolution and maybe a few issues if it is wet. It seems we have a chance of rain tomorrow in the afternoon and Sunday during the race, because this bitumen on top is, in general, is creating a slippery surface when the asphalt is so new.
Thank you for that. Can we now throw it back to Mexico last weekend and to the tyre test that went on during FP2? What conclusions did you draw?
It's never easy to run a tyre test in the middle of a race, and I have to thank all the teams for their availability. We ran the test, it was positive, we got a lot of data. We have now defined the new C4, C5 and C6 for next year. Thanks to this test, the test is useful to validate new compounds. Obviously, we cannot test a different construction during this kind of test, but I was a bit worried when I saw the red flag, obviously, because we didn't have a lot of margin for running all the plan. But we did it. We shortened the long runs by a couple of laps to be sure that everyone was able to finish the test, and it worked quite well.
So you say C6, there will definitely be a C6 compound in 2025. Where will you run that tyre?
That's a good question. I would like to wait for the Abu Dhabi post-season test. We still miss few data on the C6. It is important to underline that we have to homologate the compound if we want to use it, but we are not obliged to use it. So I prefer to have the flexibility to have a C6 in the range that is mainly for street circuit. I can imagine, for example, Las Vegas, just to give you a name that is not Monaco, because otherwise everybody is just mentioning Monaco. We have more and more street circuit in the calendar, and having the flexibility to have a C6 could be useful. And we are not obliged to select, let's say, 3 consecutive compounds. So if we realize that, for example, the C6 could be good in some circuit, but close to the C5, we can also decide to nominate C3, C4, and C6, and skip one level. So this is giving us a bit more flexibility. We are going to discuss with the teams and with the FIA a draft allocation for next year, as we always do. And I'm happy to have this flexibility, honestly.
Okay, Mario, thank you for that. Let's now open this to the floor, as ever. Name and publication, please. Yeah, John, start with you.
John Noble from Autosport, To Andrea, in this championship fight, how much more complicated has it got now that Ferrari has stepped up in the hunt? Because Max is obviously clearly focused on Lando and doesn't particularly care if he lets Ferraris through in that fight. But you're fighting a Drivers' Championship and a Constructors' Championship. So how much more tricky is it dealing with those two elements?
The complication associated to Ferrari being part of this championship quest, I think now is more material because of the numbers. But for us personally, at McLaren, we have always internally talked of Ferrari being a potential problem in terms of being a candidate for the championship, because it has been very clear that especially after at Monza and afterwards, they had a very fast car. They improved in their top speed, they improved in terms of their downforce, and at some of the events, they didn't maximize what was at stake for them. Like if we think Baku, I think they had the pace to win the race, Singapore. So it has become more evident, but for us it's always been the case. We knew that that Ferrari was in the quest. Clearly, in the last two events, if we look at Lando's race, we allegedly lost some points because of the interactions with Max. It's racing. We need to take these things into account. The best thing we can do is just be as fast as possible and not even be, in the range. Which this is a joke. I think Red Bull will always be there. It's a very optimistic prospect. But I think what we are reassured by the way this kind of close situations have been handled in Mexico. This gives us some reassurance for the future, and ultimately is racing, is F1 racing. We need to accept this and do our best.
Thank you, Andrea. Next one, please.
Scott Mitchell-Mann from The Race. There's a question primarily to James and Andrea, but Mario, if there's anything from a Pirelli perspective to add, please do. I just wonder what your thoughts are on the progress that's been made with the 2026 regulations. There was the update a couple of weeks ago. The suggestion is that the performance profile has changed on the cars. They've become a little bit quicker. How happy are you with that? What room is there still to improve?
James, you first.
I think there was really good work done both by the FI but also the teams at the same time in coming to a solution that I think is much better now. We're in a situation there's more freedom to be able to explore those regulations. There's more performance that comes with it at the same time. I think it's a better balance of what we've achieved. And it's really good. I mean, I've said it twice in that sentence, but it's because it really was a good reflection as to how all the teams came together with the FI to produce those regulations as one. That's why it came together as quickly as it did.
Andrew, anything?
First of all, I would like to completely express my agreement with James in terms of the good work, the good collaboration between the FIA and the teams, which is important to underline. I think in terms of cornering speed, now in simulation looks like much more convincing. That may still be offering good racing, may still be offering Formula One as the pinnacle of motorsport. So from this point of view, downforce level seems to be in a much better place. I think there's still a few weeks of work, and hopefully this will lead us to the target that will guarantee good racing and good overall speed, like we all want to see for a Formula One car.
Mario, anything?
We continue our development plan. Obviously, we are monitoring the technical regulation in order to have a tire that can suit the performance of the expected performance of the cars. The limitation we have is that testing on the mule cars obviously is not fully representative of what we will find in 2026. We have one test. The first wet test in the next few weeks that is already planned, and we will continue and we will try to do our best to have a good product. I believe that most of the job is on the virtual model of the tire, and we have a fantastic cooperation with the teams to test this model on their simulators and come back with the feedback.
Okay, thanks all. Next one, please.
Gabriel Araújo, Reuters. A question for Andrea about your young talent, Gabriel Bortoleto. Max suggested yesterday that if he was Sauber, he would have signed Bortoleto already. There's a possibility, of course, that Bortoleto moves to Sauber. I want to know what's the situation for him at the moment. Would you be willing to let him go? For how long? So how's the scenario for Gabriel?
Having the possibility to talk about Gabriel, I would like to, take this opportunity to say once again how good a work he's been doing in junior categories, winning F3, leading F2 at the first season. And this is to lead into the fact that I think it's very, very normal and natural that Formula One teams are interested in having Gabriel as a driver. In terms of McLaren will not stop the possibility for Gabriel to drive Formula One. So conversations are ongoing, and we will see what the scenario will be for the future.
Thank you, Andrea. Another one, please. Yep, at the back.
Hello, for James. Christian Horner was seen leaving the Williams hospitality today. Was it a meeting about Franco Colapinto?
We've recently signed a new coffee sponsor, which is Reviver from Golf, and he really wanted to try it. That was a good part of the conversation. He enjoyed it.
All right, thanks, James. Who's next? Yeah.
Nigel Chu, Sky Sports. Question for Andrea, please. A couple of months ago, there was a lot of talk about team orders at McLaren. What's the situation now, given there's only 4 races left? Is Lando still getting preference over Oscar?
In terms of this topic, the situation hasn't actually changed very much compared to some comments that we made. I think we were already before Baku. We are in the quest for both championship. Lando is the driver that is in contention for the Drivers' Championship, so it's natural that we are going to support Lando. We have always said that we would do that in the spirit of our principles, which lean onto integrity, sportsmanship, fairness to both drivers, and that's what we are trying to do. You will have seen that in both Austin and Mexico, for instance, Lando had some upgraded parts which were not available for both cars, so we gave them to Lando. And this is a way of creating a support to the driver that is in the fight for the championship. At the same time, as part of our approach, we keep having pretty much daily conversations with both drivers, because we want to make sure that if some actions are required in a competitive session, this comes with the agreement from both parties, because we look at the season, but we also look at the future.
Okay, thank you. Who's next?
Here to James. Sorry. What do you feel when you came to every circuit, every track, and the fans acclaim Franco Colapinto, especially here in Sao Paulo with a lot of Argentinian people?
Pride is the first emotion that I feel. I'm really proud of Franco. I mean, we've obviously worked together for a little bit of time, not as long as perhaps I would do with most young drivers, but a reasonable period of time. And I've seen him grow up tremendously in the last 2 years. And for me, it's just reward for an individual, a young man that's performing absolutely incredibly. And to see his fan base out there is exceptional. And I think Argentina's been through a reasonable amount of pain, and it's good. What's incredible is seeing a whole country respond to someone iconic that's doing something great in the sport. So I'd go always to pride.
Thank you, James. Next one.
Hi, Sabrina from Clarín, Argentina, to James. Andrea talked recently about McLaren won't stop Gabriel Bortoleto from racing in Formula One. Has Williams the same position?
The best I can really tell you is we're actively working with teams that are interested to try and find the right arrangement that helps Franco, that protects Franco as well and protects all parties. So it's very much in those lines. It's the same concept behind it. It's never straightforward between Formula One teams, because you're fighting on track and you're trying to find a solution for a career of a young man. But answering the question, he is earning his place. He needs to do more on track to keep earning his place as a result of things, but he's shining, and that's why there's interest from teams. And our responsibility in that is I have responsibility both towards him and Williams. And hopefully we'll have some great news to be able to talk to everyone about, but today that isn't available.
Thank you. Next one.
John Noble, Autosportmotorsport.com again. To Andrea, it's been said there's a lot of similarities between this year's championship and 2021 in terms of a close championship fight, technical controversies between the two teams, psychological warfare, and two drivers battling kind of on-off track, wheel-to-wheel, and controversies. How much are you reflecting on kind of history in the past, title battles to learn, and does that kind of influence and have a factor in your approach?
Well, first of all, as you were making this question, I felt a little bit of pride in the fact that now is McLaren a part of this contention. 2021, is in the history of Formula One. It will stay there for a long, long time for various reasons. But like I say, first of all, let me express a bit of pride to be there now with McLaren. There's always a lot you can learn from the past. And actually, one thing we say internally is that let's try to learn from situations without us being protagonists of these situations. So we definitely look at that season. We looked even, if we want to talk about some hot topics, even the close racing between Max and Hamilton. We looked at the mutual monitoring, as you said, between the teams, which is normal practice, but definitely as you contend at this level, you need to pay extra attention in analyzing what competitors do from a technical point of view, from a sporting point of view. So yes, the 2021 is a reference season, like many others in fairness, and we try and learn as much as possible.
Thank you. Ed.
Ed Straw, the race for Andrea and James again, looking at 2026, obviously the aero testing is prohibited, but you've got groups working on the rules. In terms of the recent changes that were published, how much extra opportunity is there being created there? I'm thinking the front wing changes, all the devices around the front of the side pod and the floor. Is that not only going to improve performance, but also create more opportunity for the fine control? Is it kind of inching back a little bit more to what you had pre-22 with the fine control of barge boards, that kind of thing? Is there a big opportunity there, and will that be a significant development area once you get into 26 and you're all fighting it out?
With the recent release of the car geometry, especially from an aerodynamic point of view, basically two main things have been achieved, as you refer to. One is a much higher downforce level, and the second one is more freedom. We welcome both. We welcome the more freedom. I think this will give teams the possibility to, use their knowledge, use their methodologies, the knowledge that has been accrued over the years, even if with different regulations, is a way of creating some differentiation. So we've always been advocating this kind of approach, and we welcome the fact that there will be more freedom.
Yeah, well said by Andrea, as always. It's fundamentally yes, to answer your question. We now have more freedom where you can see a different direction that you're going in. So there's more flow controlling devices in place, which lead to downforce, but differentiation between teams. What's been really positive as well is there's still some small areas of improvement around the diffuser, but again, what's great to see is teams and the FI working hand in hand in order to improve that. Because every time you make a change like that, it has some consequences. But I think what you're going to see now is instead of all teams working in the same few millimeters, there'll be some different concepts. And I personally think that is good for the sport.
Thanks both. We've got time for one more. Yes, please.
Hello, my name is Dario Coronel from Argentina, Infobae. The question is for James. When the future of Franco Colapinto will be defined? The future of Franco.
But what was the question? When will it be decided?
Yes.
I mean, these sorts of things are always hard to do because you're talking about multiple teams talking together, but it'll be something that I'm confident before the last race of the season will have nailed, but it's really hard for me to pinpoint where in between those two timelines.